Wait, what? For a second I forgot how to breathe. I nearly choked on my drink, spluttering as Vanessa's voice cut straight through the low hum of the room. It was impossible to ignore. A blade slicing through butter, sharp and impossible to miss. "It was me," she announced, her grin so wide I could see the dimple in her left cheek, basking in the spotlight like she'd been waiting for this moment all night. Heads swiveled toward her, and applause broke out around the table. But all I could see was my stepdad's face, glowing with gratitude, and my mom's eyes, rosy and glassy with tears of pride, not sadness. For a heartbeat, the whole world seemed to stop. Even the old ceiling fan above us seemed to hush, its whir fading into the background, leaving me paralyzed in my chair, my hands twisted into the hem of my dress, knuckles aching. She couldn't have said that. She wouldn't, after what I confided in her, after everything our family had been through. So that's me, Jessica Neal. I'm 29, a social worker by profession and by temperament, the kind of person who doesn't crave attention, who gets things done quietly and lets others take the credit. Drama has never been my style. But a little over a year ago, everything changed when my stepdad Rob was diagnosed with cancer. The news landed in our family like a meteor, shattering whatever peace we had, and leaving us scrambling to pick up the pieces. For my mom, it was the worst kind of nightmare. She's always been fiercely devoted to Rob. He's her second chance, her anchor after years adrift. When the treatment bills began to snowball, threatening to drown us all, I didn't hesitate. I cashed out my savings, every last cent, and paid off Rob's debt, anonymously. No one knew but Vanessa, my stepsister, my supposed confidant. I thought she'd keep my secret safe. I thought she understood why I wanted it that way. Tonight should have been the happy ending. Rob's scans came back clear, and my mom threw herself into planning a celebration. She spent the entire afternoon in the kitchen, making the pot roast Rob swears is 100 times better than anything his own mom ever made. Garlic, rosemary, and rich gravy drifted through every room, clinging to my clothes, a promise of comfort and home. She set the table with her best china, the kind we only use for holidays. We even dragged up an extra chair from the basement so Derek, Vanessa's husband, could squeeze in. For the first time in months, everyone was smiling for real. No forced optimism, no shadow behind their eyes. I tried to let myself feel it too, tried to relax into the laughter and the clatter of forks. But my mind kept wandering. Every time Rob cracked a joke or threw his head back to laugh, I felt this quiet, secret warmth in my chest, relief humming under my skin. At least he didn't have to worry about those bills anymore. He even raised his glass to the table, voice thick with emotion, toasting the anonymous Good Samaritan who'd saved him from financial ruin. I just ducked my head and took a sip, content to keep my secret tucked away where it belonged. But then Rob's eyes swept the table, curiosity lighting up his face. "Was it one of you?" he asked, hope flickering in his voice. My heart stuttered. I could feel it, hot and heavy, thudding against my ribs. I had seconds to decide. Before I could even open my mouth, Vanessa leaned back in her chair, all confidence and charm, flashing that mischievous grin. "It was me," she said. I gaped at her, my throat tightening as the whole table erupted. My mom's face crumpled in joy, reaching out to clutch Vanessa's hand, her voice trembling. "I knew it," she whispered, pure love spilling out in every word. "You've always had such a generous heart." Rob's eyes went soft, his gratitude shining like he was seeing Vanessa for the first time. "Thank you, sweetheart," he said, and his voice cracked just a little. "I don't know how to thank you enough." But what really stopped me cold was Derek's reaction. He just stared at Vanessa, fork poised halfway to his mouth. "Wait, you did this?" he asked, disbelief coloring his tone. Vanessa never missed a beat. She turned to him, her smile unwavering, and said, "Of course. I wanted to surprise everyone." Derek blinked, trying to make sense of it, then shrugged and managed a half-hearted, "Wow, I'm so proud," before shoveling another bite of potatoes into his mouth. And there I was, silent, my napkin twisted into a ragged knot in my lap. My chest was burning. Vanessa had lied, so easily, so smoothly, right to everyone's faces, including her own husband. She never even paused. It was as if she'd rehearsed it, this theft of my kindness, this rewriting of family history. Dinner carried on, but I felt like I was underwater, every sound muffled and slow. Rob shared stories from his chemo days, making light of the cranky nurses who eventually let him charm them into extra pudding cups. My mom jumped in with her own tales of late-night worry and hope, and Derek tossed out jokes about Rob sweet-talking the doctors for second helpings. Laughter and warmth swirled around the table, the kind of togetherness we'd all been craving for so long. For everyone else, it was perfect, a healing night. But not for me. Vanessa, for all her bravado, never once met my eyes after her confession. She kept her gaze fixed on her plate, or exaggerated her laugh at Derek's jokes, anything to avoid looking at me. But I watched her carefully, saw the way her fingers tightened on her wine glass, the way her shoulders hunched ever so slightly. She must have felt my stare, the accusation burning quietly between us. She knew what she'd done, and she knew I wouldn't forget. I kept my mouth shut for Rob and Mom's sake, but inside, resentment coiled, cold and sharp. After dessert, I made an excuse and stood up quickly, desperate to escape. The room felt too small, the air too thick. I hugged Rob, congratulating him, and wrapped my mom in a tight embrace, her arms squeezing me with all the love in the world. Vanessa offered a brittle, practiced smile as I collected my things, but I didn't return it. I couldn't. My mom called after me to drive safe, but her voice was distant, almost drowned out by the static roaring in my head. On the drive home, the city lights blurred past my window, streaks of gold and red. I replayed the evening, dissecting every moment, searching for a reason, some sign, some hint of why Vanessa would do this. Was it for the attention, the praise, or something deeper? Some insecurity that made her crave being the hero. I remembered all those late nights when she confided in me about feeling overlooked, about always coming in second to someone else. Was this her way of rewriting her own story, even if it meant stealing mine? What hurt most was how easily she'd done it, how quickly everyone had believed her. My act of love, meant to be invisible and pure, was now tangled up in a lie I never consented to. The celebration I'd hoped for had curdled into something I barely recognized, a performance instead of a reunion, applause given to the wrong person, truth discarded for the sake of comfort. By the time I pulled into my dark driveway, I realized the real betrayal wasn't just the lie. It was the knowledge that someone I trusted could take something so private, so hard-won, and wear it like a badge without a second thought. I sat there in the quiet, gripping the steering wheel, promising myself I wouldn't let this go, not because I needed the credit, but because I needed to believe that what I did mattered, even if no one else ever knew, and let her take credit for something she had nothing to do with. And the worst part? I let her. I just stood there, watching her soak up the praise, stealing a moment that wasn't hers, because I didn't want to ruin the night for Rob. He'd had so few good nights lately. But now, alone in my apartment, the silence settled over me like a heavy blanket I couldn't shrug off. Every time I closed my eyes, I replayed it all. Vanessa's easy smile as everyone thanked her, Rob's relief, Mom's teary gratitude. I wondered if I'd really made the right call, or if I'd just taken the path of least resistance again, letting someone else rewrite my story. I perched on the edge of my couch, staring at the TV, its black screen reflecting my own uncertainty back at me. Deep down, I knew what I had to do, or maybe what I couldn't do. Telling Rob the truth would probably lift the weight off my chest, but would it do him any good? He'd already been through so much, months of chemo, endless hospital visits, the slow, uncertain climb back to normalcy. He was finally starting to laugh again, to talk about the future without that hollow edge in his voice. The last thing he needed was to be pulled into a mess between Vanessa and me, to have his hard-earned peace shattered by ugly family drama. He didn't deserve that, not after fighting so hard just to get a sliver of his old life back. So I told myself, staying quiet was the right move, the selfless move. Rob's peace of mind mattered more than my bruised pride or festering frustration. As much as I wanted him to know that I was the one who'd had his back, that I'd made the sacrifice when he needed it most, telling him now would only complicate things, maybe even make him feel guilty for celebrating Vanessa. And honestly, guilt was the last thing he needed. He needed to heal, to be surrounded by hope and kindness, not regret. So I tried to let it go. For him, if not for me. But the next morning, as watery sunlight crept through my kitchen window, I knew I couldn't keep it bottled up any longer. The bitterness was eating at me. I sat at the kitchen table, my coffee untouched and already cold, my heart pounding with the words I'd rehearsed all night. With trembling fingers, I called Vanessa. The phone rang twice before she picked up, her voice all bright and casual, like the night before hadn't altered anything between us. "Hey, Jess," she said, breezy as ever. "What's up?" I didn't bother with small talk. "We need to talk about last night," I said, my voice sharper than I'd intended. There was a pause, long enough for me to hear the tension entering her breathing. "What about it?" she asked finally, her tone wary now. "You know what?" I said, my frustration bubbling up. "Why did you lie to everyone and say you paid off Rob's bills? We both know that wasn't you. I told you in confidence. How could you do that to me?" Vanessa sighed, the sound heavy and theatrical. "Jess, look, it's not a big deal. I didn't think you'd be this upset." "Not a big deal?" I snapped, gripping my phone so tightly my fingers ached. "You stood there and lied to everyone, Vanessa. You took credit for something huge, something I sacrificed a lot for. How can you say it's not a big deal?" She hesitated, her bravado faltering. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller, barely above a whisper. "I just wanted to make Dad proud of me. He's always looked at you like you're the golden child. You're the one who does the right thing, the one everyone leans on. I didn't think you'd mind if, just this once, I had that moment with him." I stared at the wall, anger and disbelief warring inside me. "Are you kidding me?" This wasn't some little secret, Vanessa. I emptied my savings account. I gave up my plans, my security, so Mom wouldn't have to worry, so Rob could focus on getting better. "And you thought I wouldn't mind?" She snapped back, her voice sharp, defensive. "I thought it'd be fine. You never wanted credit, Jess. You made it clear you didn't want Rob to know it was you. So what does it matter if he thinks it was me? It's not about the credit," I said, working to keep my voice steady, though my hands trembled. "I didn't do this to be celebrated. I didn't even want Rob to know it was me. But lying, letting everyone believe you did something you didn't, letting Mom and Rob look at you like you're some kind of hero. How is that okay? How can you stand there and let that happen?" Vanessa exhaled loudly, frustration plain in her voice. "Jess, you're blowing this up. Really. Rob's happy, Mom's happy. What difference does it make? You're the one who said you didn't want recognition. Why does it matter who they think did it?" I shook my head even though she couldn't see me. "It matters because it's a lie," I said, my voice cracking. "You turned something that was about helping Rob into a way to make yourself feel better. Now I have to sit here and watch everyone praise you for something you didn't do. Do you know how humiliating that is? Not because I want the attention, but because it's a betrayal. You betrayed me, Vanessa." There was a long, heavy silence. Finally, she spoke, her voice thin and almost childlike. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Jess. I wanted to feel like I was enough for once. Like I wasn't just the screw-up." I felt my anger slip into something sadder, heavier. "I'm not going to tell your dad," I said, my voice cold and measured. "Not for you, but for him. He's been through enough. He doesn't need this." "But Vanessa," I paused, my breath shaky. "I want you out of my life. I can't keep pretending this doesn't matter. I can't keep letting you rewrite the truth." Her breath caught, and I could hear her panic rising. "Jess, come on. You can't be serious. You're really going to throw away our relationship over this? I told you. I didn't mean to hurt you." I closed my eyes, willing myself not to cry. "You didn't mean to hurt me?" I repeated, each word heavy with disappointment. "You lied to my face, you lied to your own husband, and you took something that wasn't yours to take. You knew what that sacrifice cost me. All for what? So you could feel better about yourself? No, Vanessa, I can't trust you anymore. I won't let you use me again." She started to protest, her voice desperate and frantic, but I pulled the phone away from my ear, my own breathing loud in the quiet kitchen. For a long moment, I stared at the wall, feeling the weight of everything settle around me. I'd done the right thing for Rob. Now finally, I was doing the right thing for myself. I cut her off. "One day your conscience is going to catch up with you. Maybe not today or even next year, but it will. And when it does, I hope you remember this moment. The sister you shoved aside just to make yourself look good." My voice cracked, but I kept going, the words tumbling out now that I'd let the dam break. "I hope it was worth it," I said, and the silence that followed felt like a chasm neither of us could cross. Vanessa didn't say a word. The silence between us wasn't one of comfort or understanding, but something thick and suffocating, pressing in around me until I finally hung up. I sat there, staring at my phone, hands trembling, the reality of what had just happened sinking in slowly, like a stone settling at the bottom of a lake. I felt hollow, scraped raw, but beneath that emptiness was a stubborn ember of relief. At least I'd finally said what I needed to say, even if it had come at a cost I couldn't quite measure. A year slipped by, each day stacking on top of the last, creating an unscalable wall between me and Vanessa. Nothing between us ever went back to normal. We still crossed paths at family gatherings, birthdays, holidays, the occasional barbecue, but we might as well have been strangers standing at opposite ends of the same crowded room. Our conversations were polite, sure, marked by brittle smiles and careful words, but there was an emptiness to them that made every exchange feel like a performance. We avoided being alone together, both of us silently complicit in keeping the peace for everyone else's sake. The tension wasn't subtle. It radiated from us like heat, impossible for anyone to miss. Mom was the first to bring it up. After dinner one night, she pulled me aside, her brow furrowed with concern. "Jessica," she said quietly, her voice gentle but insistent. "What's going on between you and Vanessa? You two used to be so close." There was a wistfulness in her tone, as if she was mourning something she couldn't quite name. I shrugged, trying to brush it off, but the words felt flimsy even as I spoke them. "We're fine, Mom. Just busy, I guess." I tried to sound casual, but even I could hear the strain in my voice. Mom studied me for a moment, her eyes narrowing just slightly. She didn't buy it, and I could tell she was searching for a way in, some angle from which to reach me. But I turned away, not ready to let her in on the truth. Rob picked up on it too. At Christmas, with the house full of laughter and the smell of pine needles, he cornered me by the tree, concern etched in the lines of his face. "Why don't you and Vanessa sit together anymore?" he asked almost accusingly. "You two used to laugh so much, remember?" I forced a smile, brushing off his question as best I could, but the comment lingered with me, stinging more than I'd expected. It was hard to explain how something so simple could become so complicated, how a single betrayal could unravel years of closeness in a matter of seconds. A few months after Christmas, something shifted. Vanessa started to reach out. At first, it was just little things. Texts asking how work was going, or telling me Mom had mentioned I'd been busy. I ignored all of it, my thumb hovering over her messages before deleting them without reading more than a word or two. Each message felt like a tiny wound reopening, a reminder of what she'd done and how easily she'd turned her back on me. I wasn't ready to let her in. I wasn't even sure I wanted to. At family gatherings, she tried harder. She'd seek me out, ask how my job was going, try to draw me into conversations about mundane things, the weather, a new restaurant she'd tried. But I kept my answers short and polite, never giving her anything to hold on to. I could see the frustration in her eyes, the way she looked at me like she was searching for a crack in my armor. But I refused to give her the satisfaction. One night, while I was refilling my drink in the kitchen, she cornered me, her expression earnest in a way that almost made me feel sorry for her. "Jess, I know things haven't been great between us, but maybe we could grab coffee sometime? Just talk?" Her voice was tentative, hopeful, and desperate all at once. I didn't even look at her. "I'm busy," I said flatly, brushing past her like she was just another obstacle in my way. She let out a quiet sigh, the sound heavy with resignation. But I didn't stop to see her face. Whatever she was trying to do, it wasn't enough to erase the past year, wasn't enough to undo the hurt she'd caused. A few weeks later, Mom mentioned something that caught me off guard. We were clearing the table after dinner when she spoke, her tone cautious, as if she wasn't sure how I'd take the news. "Vanessa's been going to church," she said, glancing at me out of the corner of her eye. "She's been feeling, I don't know, empty, I guess. She told me she's been thinking a lot about her life, wanting to make some changes." I raised an eyebrow, skepticism plain on my face. Vanessa going to church? It didn't add up. She'd never been the religious type, always too busy, too modern, too sure of herself for that kind of reflection. Mom must have noticed my doubt, because she added, "I think it's good for her. She seems calmer, more reflective. Maybe this is exactly what she needs." Her words hung in the air, heavy with hope. but I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just another one of Vanessa's attempts to fix things. Another performance for the benefit of the people around her. If it was, I wasn't buying it. People don't just change overnight. I wasn't ready to let my guard down, not after everything that had happened. One evening, after a long day at work, I settled onto the couch with a book, eager to lose myself in someone else's story for a while. My phone buzzed on the table, Vanessa's name flashing on the screen. My first instinct was to let it go to voicemail, just as I had so many times before, but I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the ignore button. Maybe it was curiosity. Or maybe it was the sense that this time was different, that something had shifted in the space between us. Against my better judgment, I picked up. "Jess," she said softly, her voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I need to tell you something." There was a vulnerability in her tone that startled me. It was so unlike the Vanessa I'd known, the one who'd always seemed so sure of herself, so unflappable. I stayed quiet, gripping the phone tighter as my heart hammered in my chest. She took a shaky breath, gathering herself before she went on. "I've been struggling with what I did, what I said that night." Her voice cracked, and I could hear the weight of her regret in every word. "It's been eating at me, Jess. I thought I could just move on, pretend it didn't matter. But it does. It matters a lot." The words just burst out before I could stop them. "Should I tell you I told you so?" My voice was sharp, all the frustration and resentment of the past year boiling over. Vanessa let out a shaky sigh, and for a moment, I thought she'd hang up, but she didn't. "You have every right to say that," she finally said, her voice raw and unguarded. "You warned me, Jess, and you were right. I thought I could live with it, but I can't. Every time Dad looks at me with that pride in his eyes, it feels like a dagger. I know I don't deserve it, and I know I don't deserve your forgiveness either." She paused, her breath hitching before she continued. "I've thought about coming clean so many times, Jess, but I'm terrified. What's Dad going to think of me? What's Mom going to say when she realizes I lied to her face? And Derek, he doesn't even know what I did that night." Her words tumbled out, each confession heavier than the last. I listened, a strange mix of anger and empathy warring inside me. For the first time, I heard the fear and remorse in her voice, the realization that she was not as invulnerable as I'd always thought. Vanessa, the sister who'd always seemed so strong, was unraveling, caught in the web of her own choices. And as I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, I realized that maybe, just maybe, she was finally beginning to understand the cost of what she'd done. How do I even begin to explain all of this to him? The words tangled in my throat, suffocating and sharp. Instead, I just sat there, silent, while the weight of her confession pressed in between us. For everything she'd put me through, every sleepless night, every moment of self-doubt, now I could finally detect something raw and honest in her voice. A tremor, fear, and something else, the ache of guilt. "You're afraid of how they'll respond," I said at last, keeping my voice as even as I could, though my pulse hammered in my ears. "But what did you expect would happen? You took credit for something you didn't do, something that mattered. Did you think the truth would never catch up to you?" My chest felt tight. I let the air out slowly, measuring my breath, fighting not to let my anger spill over. "Vanessa, listen. I'm not going to make you do anything." I spoke carefully, holding back all the things I wanted to say. "This isn't my mess to clean up. It never was. I stayed quiet for your dad's sake, for the family. But the guilt you feel, that's yours. You're the only one who can face it. No one else can carry it for you." The line was silent, her breathing soft and uneven. The quiet stretched out, heavy and uncertain, until finally she whispered, "I don't know if I can, Jess. I don't know if I'm strong enough." I shook my head, even though she couldn't see. "That's something you'll have to find out for yourself," I told her, my voice barely above a whisper. Before she could answer, I hung up. I needed distance, even if it was only the space between two phone calls. I stared at my phone for a long time, my hands shaking. Relief and anger warred inside me, tangled up with a reluctant kind of pity. It was like waking up after a long, bad dream and finding that nothing had changed, but the air felt lighter. For the first time, I realized that I didn't have to keep holding on to her guilt. It wasn't my job to shield her from the truth. Weeks slipped past, carrying the secret with them. Then, one ordinary Wednesday, my phone buzzed with a group text from Vanessa. She was inviting everyone over for dinner, her house, Saturday night. Just a casual evening. Good food, good company, she wrote, the words almost too cheerful, like someone painting over a crack in the wall. It felt strange, especially after everything that had happened between us. Mom replied in seconds. Sounds wonderful. We'll be there. Rob, always terse, sent a thumbs up. Even Derek chimed in, looking forward to it. I hesitated, reading the message over and over, before finally typing, I'll come. My hand hovered over the send button a moment before I hit it, wondering if I'd regret it. The days leading up to dinner crawled by, every hour steeped in anticipation. When Saturday finally came, I parked outside Vanessa's house, my heart already bracing for what was to come. Her place looked immaculate, the porch light casting a warm glow, windows lit up, everything arranged just so. Through the window, I could see the dining table, set with her finest china and flickering candles. For a second, it almost looked like a scene from a life that belonged to someone else. Inside, Vanessa met me at the door. Her smile was careful, the kind you wear when you're trying to convince everyone, and maybe yourself, that everything is fine. Jess, she said, voice low, thanks for coming. I nodded, uncertain, wondering what she was planning and what the night would bring. Guests arrived, laughter and easy chatter filling the living room as coats were taken and drinks poured. But beneath it all, a tension pulsed, like something waiting to surface. Once everyone settled around the table, Vanessa stood, smoothing her dress with trembling hands. She cleared her throat, glancing at the fireplace, as though searching for strength in its steady warmth. Can I have everyone's attention? Her voice trembled, barely audible at first, but the room quieted. Every face turned to her. She clasped her hands so tightly her knuckles whitened, and she shot Derek an anxious glance. He reached out, squeezing her shoulder, silent encouragement passing between them. There's something I need to say, something I should have said a long time ago. Her words were slow, heavy with all the weight she'd been carrying. Her eyes found Derek's again, searching for courage. I've made mistakes, big ones, and one of them hurt someone I love. It's been eating at me for months, and I can't hide from it anymore. Rob leaned forward, concern etched into his brow. Vanessa, what's going on? What mistake? His voice was tense, as if bracing for bad news. Mom put a steadying hand on Rob's arm, her own confusion plain. The silence in the room was absolute. So still I could hear the wall clock ticking, the faint hum of the refrigerator in the next room. Vanessa inhaled shakily, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Last year, when Dad was finally getting better, I did something I regret every single day. At the dinner after his recovery, when he thanked us for settling his medical bills, I told everyone it was me who paid them. Her voice caught, and she looked around the table, desperate for understanding. But it wasn't me. It was Jessica. The words seemed to echo, filling the room with a hush so deep I thought I might drown in it. Every pair of eyes turned to me, some wide with shock, others narrowing as the pieces slid into place. Jessica used her own savings, money she'd been putting away for years, to pay off Dad's debt, Vanessa continued, her voice cracking. She made sure Mom and Dad didn't have to worry. She made a sacrifice I could never have made, and I took her courage and claimed it for myself. I lied to you all. I let you believe I was the one who made it right, when it was Jessica all along. Tears spilled down her cheeks now, her voice breaking under the weight of what she was finally admitting. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't expect forgiveness, but I couldn't go on pretending anymore. The silence that followed was different, full of shock, confusion, but also something like relief. Vanessa's confession cracked something open, letting the air in at last. For the first time in months, I felt the burden shift, sliding from my shoulders. I didn't know what would come next. Anger, forgiveness, maybe both. But I did know that the truth was out, and I wasn't alone in it anymore. All I ever wanted was for Dad to be proud of me, to feel, if only for a fleeting moment, that I was enough, that just being me was somehow sufficient. My whole life, that longing sat heavy in my chest, shaping everything I did. That night, it all finally broke loose. Vanessa's voice faltered as she collapsed to her knees. Her hands knotted together in front of her as if she was pleading with some invisible force. Tears spilled down her cheeks, raw and unchecked, her words tumbling out in gasping bursts. "I'm so sorry, Jess, I betrayed you. I lied to everyone, and I hurt you in a way I can never take back. Dad, Mom, I don't even know what to say. I've carried this guilt for so long, and I couldn't hide from it anymore. Please, please forgive me. I know I don't deserve it. But I had to tell you the truth." The room was struck silent, every sound muffled except for Vanessa's ragged sobs. Derek, always the steady one, reached out and rested a reassuring hand on her shoulder, but she barely seemed to notice, her whole body racked with regret. Rob just sat there, his face drained of color, wide-eyed and unmoving, as though he'd just witnessed something he couldn't comprehend. Mom's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes brimming with tears of her own. For a moment, time seemed to hold its breath. All eyes turned to me, searching my face, waiting for any sign of what I might say or do. But Vanessa wasn't done. Her voice was hoarse, almost unrecognizable, stripped bare of all the bravado she usually wore like armor. "Jessica's an angel," she said, her words tumbling out in a rush. "She's the most selfless person I've ever known. She didn't tell Dad what I did. Not because she couldn't, but because she didn't want him to worry. She cared more about his peace of mind than about what I took from her. She's so good, so selfless. She didn't even want him to know she was the one who paid the bills in the first place." She paused, her whole body shuddering as she wiped at her face with shaking hands, futilely trying to stem the flood of tears. "I've spent the past year hating myself for what I did to you, Jess. I don't know how you managed to stay silent, to carry all of that inside while I just took what was yours and acted like it was nothing. You're so much better than me. I see that now. I'll never be like you, but I wish I could. I wish I had your strength, your kindness, your capacity to forgive. My whole life I've been chasing the feeling of being enough, always competing, always falling short. And now I get it. It wasn't you I was trying to outdo. It was myself." Her words hung in the air, heavy and trembling, while Vanessa crumpled in on herself, burying her face in her hands. The room seemed to close in around us, the only sound her quiet, broken crying. Derek knelt beside her, wrapping his arm gently around her shoulders, offering what comfort he could. Rob and Mom sat frozen, their faces etched with a mix of disbelief and pain. No one seemed to know what to say. The silence was thick, awkward, and full of things none of us could bring ourselves to voice. My own heart twisted in ways I hadn't expected, torn between anger, relief, and something softer, something like pity, or maybe even understanding. 6 months have passed since that night. 6 months since Vanessa finally let the truth out, shattering the careful illusions we'd all been living with. The aftermath has been nothing like I imagined. Things haven't gone back to what they were before. In some ways, I doubt they ever will. But the changes that have come are quieter, deeper, and somehow more honest than anything that came before. Vanessa is different now. There's a gentleness to her, a kind of humility I never saw in her before. She's quieter, more reflective, like she's relearning how to move through the world. She reaches out in small ways, hesitant but sincere, sending a text when she thinks of me, or checking in when she hears I'm not feeling well. Sometimes she'll share a memory or send a stupid meme, and I can sense both the effort and the hope behind it. She's trying, in her own imperfect way, to bridge the gap she created. Rob and Mom surprised me with how they handled it all. Rob was hurt, of course. I could see the disappointment in his eyes every time he looked at Vanessa in those early weeks. But he never withdrew his love from her. If anything, he tried harder to show up for both of us, maybe because he realized how fragile family can be. With me, he's been more present, asking about my work, actually listening for an answer, saving the best slice of pie at dinner, letting me know in small ways that I matter too. As for Mom, the shock lingered for a long time. There were days when I'd catch her just staring into space, lost in thought, her face unreadable. But slowly, she found her way back, turning her worry into careful gestures, a hand on my shoulder, a gentle word, making my favorite tea without asking. She never said much about what happened, but her eyes said enough. Looking back, I realized that night forced all of us to confront truths we'd been avoiding for years. It stripped away the pretense, the careful roles we'd each built for ourselves. We're not perfect, not by any stretch, but in the rawness of that night, something real took root, a fragile honesty that wasn't there before. The wounds are still there, healing in fits and starts, but there's a sense of possibility too. Vanessa is still on her journey. She's not the person she was, and I can see how much it costs her to keep trying. She wants to be better, to be worthy of forgiveness, and for the first time, I believe she really means it. Sometimes I catch a glimpse of the sister I always hoped she could be. Vulnerable, genuine, reaching out not just for approval, but for connection. Maybe we'll never be what we once were, but we're building something new, piece by piece. And in the quiet after the storm, I find that I'm willing to try too.